Imam Ali, peace be upon him, is not only for Muslims but for all humanity, who are searching for the meaning of life and true wisdom. Sermon 191, known as Al-Khutbah al-Qasiyah, Sermon of Disparagement. It comprises disparagement of Satan, Iblis, for his vanity and his refusing to prostrate before Adam, peace be upon him, and his being the first to display bigotry and to act through vanity. It comprises a warning to people treading in Satan's path. Praise be to God, who wears the apparel of honor and dignity, and has chosen them for himself instead of for his creation. He has made them inaccessible and unlawful for others. He has selected them for his own great self, and has hurled a curse on him who contests with him concerning them. God's trial, and the vanity of Iblis. Then he put his angels on trial concerning these attributes, in order to distinguish those who are modest from those who are vain. Therefore, God, who is aware of whatever is hidden in the hearts, and whatever lies behind the unseen, said, Verily I am about to create man from clay, and when I have completed, and have breathed into him of my spirit, then fall ye prostrating in obeisance unto him. And did fall prostrating in obeisance the angels altogether, save Iblis. His vanity stood in his way, consequently, he felt proud over Adam by virtue of his creation, and boasted over him on account of his origin. Thus this enemy of God is the leader of those who boast, and the forerunner of the vain. It is he who laid the foundation of factionalism, quarreled with God about the robe of greatness, put on the dress of haughtiness, and took off the covering of humility. Do you not see how God made him low on account of his vanity, and humiliated him for his feigning to be high? He discarded him in this world, and provided for him burning fire in the next world. If God had wanted to create Adam from a light, whose glare would have dazzled the eyes, whose handsomeness would have amazed the wits, and whose smell would have caught the breath, he could have done so, and if he had done so, people would have bowed to him in humility, and the trial of the angels through him would have become easier. But God, the glorified, tries his creatures by means of those things, whose real nature they do not know, in order to distinguish good and bad for them through the trial, and to remove vanity from them, and keep them aloof from pride and self-admiration. You should take a lesson from what God did with Satan, namely he nullified his great acts and extensive efforts on account of the vanity of one moment. Although Satan had worshipped God for 6,000 years, whether by the reckoning of this world or of the next world is not known, who now can remain safe from God, after Satan by committing a similar disobedience? None at all. God, the glorified, cannot let a human being into paradise if he does the same thing, for which God turned out from it an angel. His command for the inhabitants in the sky and of the earth is the same. There is no friendship between God and any individual out of his creation so as to give him license for an undesirable thing, which he has held unlawful for all the worlds. Warning against Satan. Therefore, you should fear lest Satan infects you with his disease, or leads you astray through his call, or marches on you with his horsemen and footmen, because, by my life, he has put the arrow in the bow for you, has stretched the bow strongly, and has aimed at you from a nearby position, and he said, My Lord, because thou hast left me to stray, certainly will I adorn unto them the path of error, and certainly will I cause them all to go astray. Although Satan had said so only by guessing about the unknown future, and by wrong conjecturing, yet the sons of vanity, the brothers of haughtiness, and the horsemen of pride and intolerance proved him to be true, so much so that when disobedient persons from among you bowed before him, and his greed about your gained strength, and what was a hidden secret turned into a clear fact, he spread his full control over you, and marched with his forces towards you. Then they pushed you into the hollows of disgrace, threw you into the whirlpools of slaughter, and trampled you, wounding you by striking your eyes with spears, cutting your throats, tearing your nostrils, breaking your limbs, and taking you in ropes of control towards the fire already prepared. In this way, he became more harmful to your religion, and a greater kindler of flames of mischief about your worldly matters than the enemies against whom you showed open opposition, and against whom you marched your forces. You should therefore spend all your force against him, and all your efforts against him, because, by God, he boasted over your, that is, Adam's origin, questioned your position, and spoke lightly of your lineage. He advanced on you with his army, and brought his footmen towards your path. They are chasing you from every place, and they are hitting you at every finger joint. You are not able to defend by any means, nor can you repulse them by any determination. You are in the thick of disgrace, the ring of straightness, the field of death, and the way of distress. You should therefore put out the fires of haughtiness and the flames of intolerance that are hidden in your hearts. This vanity can exist in a Muslim only by the machinations of Satan, his haughtiness, mischief, and whisperings. Make up your mind to have humility over your heads, to trample self-pride under your feet, and to cast off vanity from your necks. Adopt humility as the weapon between you and your enemy Satan and his forces. He certainly has from every people fighters, helpers, footmen, and horsemen. Do not be like him, who feigned superiority over the son of his own mother, without any distinction given to him by God, except the feeling of envy, which his feeling of greatness created in him, and the fire of anger that vanity kindled in his heart. Satan blew into his nose his own vanity, after which God gave him remorse, and made him responsible for the sins of all killers up to the day of judgment. Caution against vanity and boasting about ignorance. Beware. You strove hard in revolting and created mischief on the earth, in open opposition to God and in challenging the believers over fighting. You should fear God. In feeling proud of your vanity and boasting over ignorance, because this is the root of enmity and the design of Satan, wherewith he has been deceiving past people and bygone ages, with the result that they fell into the gloom of his ignorance and the hollows of his misguidance, submitting to his driving and accepting his leadership. In this matter the hearts of all the people were similar, and centuries passed by one after the other in just the same way, and there was vanity with which chests were tightened. Caution against obeying haughty leaders and elders. Beware of obeying your leaders and elders who felt proud of their achievements and boasted about their lineage. They hurled the liability for things on God, and quarreled with God, in what he did with them, contesting his decree, and disputing his favors. Certainly, they are the main foundation of obstinacy, the chief pillars of mischief and the swords of pre-Islamic boasting over forefathers. Therefore, fear God, do not become antagonistic to his favors on you, nor jealous of his bounty over you, and do not obey the claimants of Islam whose dirty water you drink along with your clean one, whose ailments you mix with your healthiness, and whose wrongs you allow to enter into your rightful matters. They are the foundation of vice, and the linings of disobedience. Satan has made them carriers of misguidance, and the soldiers with whom he attacks men, they are interpreters through whom he speaks in order to steal away your wits, enter into your eyes, and blow into your ears. In this way he makes you the victim of his arrows, the treading ground of his footsteps, and source of strength for his hands. Take instruction from how he brought God's wrath, violence, chastisement, and punishment on those who were vain among the past people. Take admonition from their lying on their cheeks, and falling on their sides, and seek God's protection from the dangers of vanity, as you seek his protection from calamities. The humbleness of the Holy Prophet. Certainly, if God were to allow anyone to indulge in pride, he would have allowed it to his selected prophets and vicegerents, but God, the Sublime, disliked vanity for them, and liked humbleness for them. Therefore they laid their cheeks on the ground, smeared their faces with dust, bent themselves down for the believers, and remained humble people. God tried them with hunger, afflicted them with difficulty, tested them with fear, and upset them with troubles. Therefore, do not regard wealth and progeny, the criterion for God's pleasure and displeasure, as you are not aware of the chances of mischief and trials during richness and power, as God, the glorified, the sublime, has said. What? Think they that what we aid them with of wealth and children, we are hastening unto them the good things? Nay, they perceive not. Certainly, God the glorified tries his creatures who are vain about themselves, through his beloved persons, who are humble in their eyes. When Moses son of Imran went to Pharaoh along with his brother Aaron, wearing coarse shirts of wool, and holding sticks in their hands, they guaranteed him retention of his country, and continuity of his honor, if he submitted. But he said, do you not wonder at these two men, guaranteeing me the continuity of my honor, and the retention of my country, although you see their poverty and lowliness? Otherwise, why do they not have gold bangles on their wrists? He said so, feeling proud of his gold and collected possessions, and considering wool and its cloth as nothing, when God, the glorified, deputed his prophets, if he had wished to open for them treasures and mines of gold, and surround them with planted gardens, and to collect around them birds of the skies, and beasts of the earth, he could have done so. If he had done so, then there would have been no trial, nor recompense, and no tidings about the affairs of the next world. Those who accepted his message could not be given the recompense falling due after trial, and the believers could not deserve the reward for good acts, and all these words would not have retained their meanings. But God, the glorified, makes his prophets firm in their determination, and gives them weakness of appearance as seen from the eyes, along with contentment that fills the hearts and eyes, resulting from carefreeness, and with warmth that pains the eyes and ears. If the prophets possessed authority that could not be assaulted, or honor that could not be damaged, or domain towards which the necks of people would turn, and the saddles of mounts could be set, it would have been very easy for people to seek lessons, and quite difficult to feel vanity. They would have then accepted belief out of fear felt by them, or inclination attracting them. and the intention of them all would have been the same, although their actions would have been different. Therefore, God, the glorified, decided that people should follow his prophets, acknowledge his books, remain humble before his face, obey his command, and accept his obedience with sincerity, in which there should not be an iota of anything else, and as the trial and tribulation would be stiffer, the reward and recompense too should be larger. The Holy Qur'an. Do you not see that God, the glorified, has tried all the people among those who came before, beginning with Adam, up to the last ones in this world, with stones which yield neither benefit nor harm, which neither see nor hear? He made those stones into his sacred house, which he made a standby for the people. He placed it in the most rugged stony part of the earth, and on a highland with least soil thereon, among the most narrow valleys, between rough mountains, soft sandy plains, springs of scanty water, and scattered habitants, where neither camels nor horses nor cows and sheep can prosper. Then he commanded Adam and his sons to turn their attention towards it. In this way it became the center of their journey, in seeking pastures, and the rendezvous for meeting of their carrier beasts, so that human spirits hastened towards it, from distant waterless deserts, deep and low-lying valleys, and scattered islands in the seas. They shake their shoulders in humbleness, recite the slogan of having reached his audience, march with swift feet and have disheveled hair and dusted faces. They throw their pieces of cloth on their backs. They have marred the beauty of their faces by leaving the hair uncut as a matter of great test, severe tribulation, open trial, and extreme refining. God has made it a means to his mercy, and an approach to his paradise. If God, the glorified, had placed his sacred house and his great signs among plantations, streams, soft and level plains, plenty of trees, an abundance of fruits, a thick population, close habitats, golden wheat, lush gardens, green land, watered plains, thriving orchards, and crowded streets, the amount of recompense would have decreased, because of the lightness of the trial, if the foundation on which the house is born and the stones with which it has been raised had been of green emerald and red rubies, and there had been brightness and effulgence. Then this would have lessened the action of doubts in the breasts, would have dismissed the effect of Satan's activity from the hearts, and would have stopped the surging of misgivings in people. But God tries his creatures by means of different troubles, wants them to render worship through hardships, and involves them in distresses, all in order to extract out vanity from their hearts, to settle down humbleness in their spirits, and to make all this an open door for his favors, and an easy means for his forgiveness for their sins. Caution against rebellion and oppressiveness. Fear God. God. From the immediate consequence of rebellion to accrue in this world, and the eventual consequence of weighty oppressiveness to accrue in the next world, and from the evil result of vanity, because it is the great trap of Satan and his big deceit, which enters the hearts of the people like a fatal poison. It never goes waste, nor misses anyone, neither the learned because of his knowledge, nor the destitute in his rags. This is the thing against which God has protected his creatures, who are believers, by means of prayers and almsgiving, and suffering the hardship of fasting, in the days in which it has been made obligatory, in order to give their limbs peacefulness, to cast fear in their eyes, to make their spirits humble, to give their hearts humility, and to remove haughtiness from them. All this is achieved through the covering of their delicate cheeks with dust in humility, prostrating their main limbs on the ground in humbleness, and retracting of their bellies, so as to reach to their backs, due to fasting by way of lowliness before God, besides giving all sorts of products of the earth to the needy and the destitute by way of alms. Look what there is in these acts. By way of curbing the appearance of pride and suppressing the traces of vanity, I cast my glance and noticed that no one in the world, except you, feels vanity for anything without a cause which may appeal to the ignorant, or a reason which may cling to the minds of the foolish. Because you feel vanity for something for which no reason is discernible, nor any ground. As for Satan, he felt proud over Adam, because of his origin, and taunted at him about his creation, since he said, I am of fire, while you are of clay. In the same way, the rich among the prosperous communities have been feeling vanity because of their riches, as God said. And said they, we are more than you, in wealth and in children, and we shall not be chastised. Enthusiasm for attractive manners, respectable position, and taking lessons from the past. In case you cannot avoid vanity, your vanity should be for good qualities, praiseworthy acts, and admirable matters, with which the dignified and noble chiefs of the Arab families distinguished themselves, as attractive manners, high thinking, respectable position, and good performances. You too should show vanity and praiseworthy habits, like the protection of the neighbor, the fulfillment of agreements, obedience to the virtuous, opposition to the haughty, extending generosity to others, abstention from rebellion, keeping aloof from bloodshed, doing justice to people, suppressing anger and avoiding trouble on the earth. You should also fear what calamities befell peoples before you, on account of their evil deeds and detestable actions. Remember, during good or bad circumstances, what happened to them, and be cautious that you do not become like them after you have thought over both the conditions of these people. Attach yourself to everything with which their position became honorable, on account of which enemies remained away from them, through which safety spread over them, by reason of which riches bowed before them, and as a result of which distinction connected itself with their rope. These things were abstention from division, sticking to unity, calling each other to it, and advising each other about it. You avoid everything which broke their backbone, and weakened their power, such as malice in the heart, hatred in the chest, turning away from each other's help, and withholding the hand from one another's assistance. Think about the condition of people from among the believers, who passed before you. What distresses and trials they were in. Were they not the most overburdened among all the people, and in the most straitened circumstances in the whole world? The pharaohs took them as slaves. They inflicted on them the worst punishments and bitter sufferings. They continuously remained in this state of ruinous disgrace and severe subjugation. They found no method for escape, and no way for protection, till when God, the glorified, noticed that they were enduring troubles in his love and bearing distresses out of fear for him, he provided escape from the distress of trials. So, he changed their disgrace into honor, and fear into safety. Consequently, they became ruling kings, and conspicuous leaders, and God's favors over them reached limits to which their own wishes had not reached. Look how they were when their groups were united, their views were unanimous, their hearts were moderate, their hands used to help one another, their swords were intended for assisting one another, their eyes were sharp, and their aims were the same. Did they not become masters of the corners of the earth, and rulers over the neck of all the worlds? Thereafter also see what happened to them towards the end. When division overtook them, unity became fractured, and differences arose between their words and their hearts. They divided into various groups, and were scattered fighting among themselves. Then God took away from them the apparel of his honor, and deprived them of the prosperity produced by his favors. Only their stories have remained among you, for the guidance of those who may learn the lesson from them. You should take a lesson from the fate of the progeny of Ismail, the children of Isaac and the children of Israel. How similar are their affairs, and how akin are their examples, in connection with the details of their division and disunity. Think of the days when Kisras of Persia and the Caesars of Rome had become their masters. They turned them out from the pastures of their lands, the rivers of Iraq, and the fertility of the world towards thorny forests, the passages of hot winds and hardships in livelihood. In this way they turned them into just herders of camels. Their houses were the worst in the world, and their places of stay were the most drought-stricken. There was not one voice towards which they could turn for protection, nor any shade of affection on whose strength they could repose trust. Their condition was full of distress. Their hands were scattered, their majority was divided, they were in great anguish, and under layers of ignorance, they buried their daughters alive, worshipped idols, disregarded kinship, and practiced robbery. Now, look at the various favors of God upon them, that he deputed towards them a prophet, who got them to pledge their obedience to him, and made them unite at his call. Look how God's bounty spread the wings of its favors over them, and flowed for them streams of its blessing, and the whole community became wrapped in blissful prosperity. Consequently, they were submerged under its bounty, and enjoyed its lush life. Their affairs were settled under the protection of a powerful ruler, and circumstances offered them overpowering honor, and all things became easy for them. Under the auspices of a strong country, they became rulers over the world, and kings in the various parts of the earth. They became masters of those who were formerly their masters, and began issuing commands over those who used to command them. They were so strong that neither did their spears need testing, nor did their weapons have any flaw. Condemning his people. Beware! You have shaken your hands loose from the rope of obedience, and broken the divine thought around you by resorting to pre-Islamic rules. Certainly, it is a great blessing of God, the glorified, that he has engendered among them unity through the cord of affection in whose shade they walk and take shelter. This is a blessing whose value no one in the whole world realizes, because it is more valuable than any price, and higher than any wealth. You should know that you have again reverted to the position of the Bedouin Arabs after immigration to Islam, and have become different parties. After having been once united, you do not possess anything of Islam, except its name, and know nothing of belief save its show. You say, the fire yes, but no shameful position, as if you would throw down Islam on its face in order to defame its honor, and break its pledge for brotherhood, which God gave you as a sacred trust on his earth, and a source of peace among the people. Be sure that if you incline towards anything other than Islam, the unbelievers will fight you. Then there will be neither Gabriel nor Michael, neither Nahjul nor answer to help you, but only the clashing of swords, till God settles the matter for you. Certainly, there are examples before you of God's wrath punishment, days of tribulations and happenings. Therefore, do not disregard his promises, ignoring his punishment, making light his wrath, and not expecting his violence, because God, the glorified, did not curse the past ages, except because they had left off asking others to do good acts and refraining them from bad acts. In fact, God cursed the foolish for committing sins and the wise, because they gave up refraining others from evils. Beware, you have broken the shackles of Islam, have transgressed its limits, and have destroyed its commands. Imam Ali, peace be upon him, high position and wonderful deeds in Islam. Beware! Surely God has commanded me to fight those who revolt, or who break the pledge, or create trouble on the earth. As regards pledge breakers, I have fought them. As regards deviators from truth, I have waged holy war against them. And as regards those who have gone out of the faith, I have put them in serious disgrace. As for Satan of the pit, he too has been dealt with by me through the loud cry, with which the scream of his heart and shaking of his chest was also heard. Only a small portion of the rebels has remained. If God allows me one more chance over them, I will annihilate them except a few remnants that may remain scattered in the suburb and the cities. Even in my boyhood, I had lowered the chest of the famous men of Arabia and broken the horn points. That has defeated the chiefs of the tribes of Arabia and Mada. Certainly, you know my position of close kinship and special relationship with the Prophet of God. Peace and blessing of God be upon him and his descendants. When I was only a child, he took charge of me. He used to press me to his chest and lay me beside him in his bed, bring his body close to mine, and make me smell his smell. He used to chew something and then feed me with it. He found no lie in my speaking, nor weakness in any act. From the time of his weaning, God had put a mighty angel with him, to take him along the path of high character and good behavior through day and night, while I used to follow him, like a young camel, following in the footprints of its mother. Every day he would show me in the form of a banner some of his high traits and commanded me to follow it. Every year he used to go in second exclusion to the hill of Hira, where I saw him but no one else saw him. In those days Islam did not exist in any house, except that of the Prophet of God. Peace and blessing of God be upon him and his descendants. And Khadijah. While I was the third after these two, I used to see and watch the effulgence of divine revelation and message and breathe the scent of prophethood. When the revelation descended on the Prophet of God, peace and blessing of God be upon him and his descendants, I heard the moan of Satan. I said, O Prophet of God, what is this moan? And he replied, this is Satan, who has lost all hope and being worshipped. O Ali, you see all that I see, and you hear all that I hear, except that you are not a prophet, but you are a vigilant, and you are surely on the path of virtue. I was with him when a party of the Quraysh came to him and said to him, O Muhammad, you have made a big claim, which none of your forefathers or those of your family have made. We ask you one thing. If you give us an answer to it and show it to us, we will believe that you are a prophet and a messenger. But if you cannot do it, we will know that you are a sorcerer and a liar. The messenger of God said, what do you ask for? They said, ask this tree to move for us, even with its roots, and stop before you. The prophet said, verily, God has power over everything. If God does it for you, will you then believe and stand witness to the truth? They said, yes. Then he said, I shall show you whatever you want, but I know that you won't bend towards virtue, and there are among you those who will be thrown into the pit, and those who will form parties against me. Then the Holy Prophet said, O tree, if you do believe in God and the day of judgment, and know that I am the Prophet of God, come up with your roots and stand before me with the permission of God, by him who deputed the Prophet with truth. The tree did remove itself with its root, and came with a great humming sound, and a flapping like the flapping of the wings of birds, till it stopped before the messenger of God, while some of its twigs came down onto my shoulders, and I was on the right side of the Holy Prophet. When the people saw this, they said by way of pride and vanity, now you order half of it to come to you, and the other half of it remain in its place. The Holy Prophet ordered the tree to do the same. Then half of the tree advanced towards him in an amazing manner, and with greater humming, it was about to touch the Prophet of God. Then they said, disbelieving and revolting, ask this half to get back to its other half, and be as it was. The Prophet ordered it, and it returned. Then I said, O Prophet of God, I am the first to believe in you, and to acknowledge that the tree did what it did just now with the command of God, the sublime, in testimony to your prophethood and to heighten your word. Upon this all the people shouted, "Rather a sorcerer, a liar. It is wonderful sorcery. He is very adept in it. Only a man like this," pointing to me, "can stand testimony to you in your affairs. Certainly, I belong to the group of people who care not for the reproach of anybody in matters concerning God. Their countenance is the countenance of the truthful, and their speech is the speech of the virtuous. They are wakeful during the nights, in devotion to God, and over beacons of guidance in the day. They hold fast to the rope of the Qur'an, revive the traditions of God and of His Prophet. They do not boast, nor indulge in self-conceit, nor misappropriate, nor create mischief. Their hearts are in paradise, while their bodies are busy in good acts.